Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror movie review as part of my 31 Horror Movies in May series. So today we're going to take a look at a first-time watch for me in a movie that spawned a franchise, and I haven't seen any of these films prior to watching this first one for this review. So I'm very excited to review this one, as I was excited to watch it and the sequels as well, and that is Phantasm from 1979, the first Phantasm movie, which I have the special edition MGM DVD version here. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into Phantasm. Boy, nah, I don't do it very well, but anyway, per normal, we'll start with the setup, the premise, and the cast, and then I'll get into my thoughts and review, which will be spoiler free. So, Phantasm is a 1979 American science fiction horror film that was directed, written, photographed, and edited by Don Coscarelli. It's the first film in the Phantasm franchise. It introduces the Tall Man, a supernatural and malevolent undertaker who turns the dead of Earth into dwarf zombies to be sent to his planet and used as slaves. He is opposed by a young boy, Mike, who tries to convince his older brother, Jody, and family friend Reggie of the threat. Phantasm was a locally financed independent film. The cast and crew were mostly amateurs and aspiring professionals. So that's sort of the setup. And then, so the film opens while engaging in sexual intercourse in Morningside Cemetery. Tommy is stabbed by the lady in lavender, who's actually the Tall Man, the Morningside mortician in another form. At the funeral, Tommy's friends Reggie believe he committed suicide. Jody's 13-year-old brother Mike secretly observes the funeral and sees the Tall Man placing Tommy's heavy casket, seemingly with little or no effort, back into the hearse instead of completing the burial. Later, Jody, seduced by the lady in lavender and taken to the cemetery to have sex. However, they are interrupted by Mike, who has been following Jody and has been driven out of his hiding place by a short, hooded figure. Mike tries to tell Jody about the hooded figure, but Jody dismisses the story. Mike investigates further at the mausoleum. Mike narrowly escapes a bladed silver sphere flying through the air. He is accosted by a caretaker, but escapes after the sphere impales itself the sphere impales itself on the caretaker's skull and drills into his brain. Mike flees the tall man. As Mike slams the door to get away, the tall man's fingers get caught and then are cut off, but continue to move, dripping yellow ichor. Taking one of the fingers with him, Mike escapes the mausoleum. So yeah, that's sort of the setup and the premise without going too far into the movie for the first Phantasm from 1979. Cast wise, of course, we have Angus Scrim as the Tall Man. We have A. Michael Baldwin as Mike Pearson, Billy Thornberry as Jody Pearson, and Reggie Bannister as Reggie. Those are basically the four main characters on this movie. There's a couple of side characters as well, but basically the movie as far as the cast goes. So yeah, as I said, it was my first time watching Phantasm. I've heard about these movies somewhat from people. I know they certainly have a cult following, but I didn't know a whole lot about them. So going into them, they were kind of fun first time watches for me. So let's just go ahead and get into my thoughts, starting with the pros, and there are quite a few of them. Um, starting with the story, it's a very different and unique kind of story that's really mesmerizing to watch all the way through. It has a very strange and dreamlike quality and idea of the tall man, and the sci-fi aspects of the movie are really fantastic and really well written. The whole thing just really works, from the story, the horror and the sci-fi aspects of it, the fantasy aspect of it. It's just a very well conceived and very unique story that really works for this movie. Um, Also, you got to talk about the score and the musical themes of the movie. They're some of the best horror music score and themes that I've ever heard in a horror movie. To be honest with you, they're really creepy while being powerful and fantastical at the same time. It's definitely a musical score that's very fitting for the kind of story and the kind of movie that this is. So yeah, the score definitely stood out to me watching this movie. Um, Obviously, you got to talk about Angus Scrim, rest his soul. He's so effective and scary as the tall man. Instantly elevated. He's instantly elevated this to one of the top 10 villains in horror movies, just off his effective and scary performance as the tall man in this movie. I know he did three other ones, I think, but just fantastic. His performance and portrayal of this character in this movie with his subtle body movements, what he does with his eyes, just his overall presence in every scene that he's in is just fantastic. One of the great horror villains. Instantly, like I said, it's the first time. Of course, I was familiar with the character. If you're in horror circles, you've kind of heard of the Tall Man, and so I was a little bit familiar with him just as far as Angus Scrim played him. They called him the Tall Man, but I really didn't know all the intricacies of the story and how exactly he fit into it. So it was all very interesting. But yeah, he absolutely sold that character. So I'm excited to watch more of these movies with him being the villain in them. Then of course you got to talk about the characters, the other characters besides the tall man, and their relationships with each other are really solid, and they really drive the movie. To be honest with you, they're all pretty likable. They have great chemistry with each other, and you really become invested in these characters pretty early on in the movie. Frankly, you learn that Mike and his older brother Jody have lost their parents a couple years earlier, and they're just kind of coping with that. Well, now losing this guy Tommy at the beginning of the movie, and you know, not really liking cemeteries or mortuaries, things like that. Yeah, the characters really work, and they really seem believable. And as I mentioned earlier in the premise of this movie, this was a really low budget movie. Um, and a lot of the actors and the crew were sort of amateurs at the time. They're seeking to become professionals, but there weren't any famous names or anything other than, of course, Angus Scrim. So yeah, really good characters. Um, then you got to talk, of course, about one of the most iconic things from this movie, which is the where the hell is it? The silver spears or spears. Is it spears or spheres? I think it's spheres with an SPH. The silver spheres that flies through the mausoleum and the damage they inflict. Obviously, they're iconic, and they're also very creepy as they inflict a lot of pain and damage on people. So yeah, I really enjoyed those. It's definitely a different sort of weapon used in horror movies. Freddy had the glove, and Jason has the um, Jason has the axe or the knife. Michael has the axe. Michael Myers, and the tall man has not only his strength, but he has these silver spheres flying through the mausoleum, and just iconic. Of course, you got to talk about Don Coscarelli's not just his directing, but everything he did for this movie on such a shoestring budget. The overall tone that he gives this movie was especially effective with a very limited budget. It's just a very impressive directing performance by Don Coscarelli, and he deserves a lot of credit for how well this movie really worked. Um, I really enjoyed the idea of what was a dream and what wasn't a dream that takes place in this movie as part of the sci-fi and fantasy aspects of the movie. It was really fun and engaging while being terrifying at the same time. Um, for the prime example of a really scary and effectively scary and creepy scene is when Michael wakes up at one point, kind of early in the movie, and you see the tall man standing over him, and then of course these little dwarf-like figures in hoods come up and try to take him down underneath the ground. Just very effectively creepy. So and I'm somebody that really kind of is interested in dream and ideas of dreams and all that stuff anyway, so that really worked for me. And then of course some other things, talking about the hooded figures, those were very, very effective. You didn't really see what was under the hoods, but just their movements and how quick they were. Very scary and effective for this movie. And then I really enjoyed the end of this movie as well, just when you think that everything is hunky-dory and was it all a dream or wasn't it? and then we get the final scene before the ending credits. Very very effective, very scary. Just a great way to wrap up a great movie, in my opinion. So yeah, I just can't really give this movie enough pros. I really, really enjoyed Phantasm for a first time watch. The only couple of small cons I have is there's a couple of the special effects that don't hold up quite as well today. Obviously, this movie was made in '78, came out in '79, so that's going to kind of be par for the course. The fly scene in the little box when he opens it, that doesn't look great. Doesn't really hold up all that well when you look at it now. I'm not even sure it did in 1979. Maybe it did back then, but and then the other thing that not so much for me, but the movie does sort of leave the viewer with a lot of unanswered questions at the end of it. As I was talking about the whole dream, what's real, the dreamlike quality and tone of the movie, but really just the whole fantasy aspect of what's actually going on in the movie. There might be a lot of people that watch this and really don't know what this movie is all about. And but to me, I'm excited to watch it again and a third time and a fourth time to pick up on things, having gone through the whole movie the first time. I know I enjoyed it and I loved it enough off the first time watching. Yeah, I might not have a great understanding of everything, but there's definitely enough there and enough that I do understand that I'm really excited for future watches. So that's another pro, by the way, is the high rewatchability factor that I can already see with this movie. But yeah, for some people, that might turn them off because it's not the easiest movie on the first time watch necessarily. It's not like a Friday the 13th movie where everything's very simple and laid out for you and basically answered. This has some complexity to it, from the sci-fi to the fantasy, and just the overall directing by Coscarelli. And I actually really enjoy that. But I recognize that not everybody does. So that's just another thing I wanted to bring up. But yeah, that's about it. Other than that, I can't praise this movie enough. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10, and I don't give a lot of 9.5s or 10s out as far as ratings go, but this was just a very fun, enjoyable, and creepy, effective watch for me. And Angus Scrim is the tall man, icon, legend. I really enjoyed the characters much more than I thought I would, and some of the practical effects are still good in this movie. I talked about some that didn't hold up as well as the con, but some of them actually weren't too bad, and I thought they worked well for the movie. So yeah, overall, it's a fantastic horror movie. Phantasm from 1979, 9.5 out of 10. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen the original Phantasm, what you think of it. Do you love it as much as I do? Do you have more problems with it? Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my videos for this series. And please hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of my great horror content throughout the rest of 2022. I have it all figured out what I'm going to do. It should be fun stuff. So thank you for watching this video. I highly recommend watching and checking out Phantasm if you haven't before. I'm so glad I own this and it's part of my collection. I'm looking forward to watching the next couple. So thank you for watching. Have a great day. Stay scared. Bye.